Welcome back to the Sharpest College Football Podcast. This is our Sun Belt preview. I'm BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. Robert, it is sticky, muggy, uncomfortable here in Newport Beach. I've also suffered a stress fracture of my right foot, so
Oh,
I'm a little cranky, and it's humid, and you can see the dogs are in the background. They're in bad moods. They're actually napping, so I think they've gotten over it. Are things any better up there in Canada?
it's really warm. We were at I don't know what the comparison is, but really warm this weekend. We were 30 degrees Celsius this weekend, which I'm not sure what
Wow.
that equates to in Fahrenheit, but I think 30 gets like 90, almost 100, right? So somewhere around there. But yeah, no, it's full summer here. The thing is, a lot of people think that, oh, Canada, it's just always really cold there. But no, especially in the part where I live in the south, we full on get summer. Yeah.
My AC is like barely functional too. So it's a super cranky episode this week. We also have with us, just to help us get through a tricky G5 conference, Josh, who helped us out with the easier ACC. Josh, thank you for joining us. You were awesome on the ACC podcast. Going to test you a little bit on this one. This is a little tougher when you get to the G5, right?
Yeah, this is where legends are made, my friend. Let's see if we can make something great out of the Sun Belt for sure.
Yeah. We love the Sun Belt, though.
Oh
I
yeah.
do. I've been bullish on it for a while now. So let's get to the Sun Belt. So first order of business is just to look at our predictions last year. My upset pick, Georgia State over Marshall. That was a good one. Jesus, or in English we say, recurring theme for the last year and a half has been, hey, Charles Huff, not so great as some people might have you think. Robert, I can't believe your upset pick didn't happen. This is like the whole, like Texas State together, and then just, this is the one game where Coastal did their thing. So tough one on that.
Yeah,
We
that is surprising. Yeah.
Your pick a little better, South Alabama over App State. I think my faith in Georgia State in the East was a little overly optimistic. Coach is no longer with us, but I did get the Troy part of that right. So if you're new or if you just want to know what the heck I'm talking about, just take a screenshot of these terms. This is our glossary. Copy, paste it into your Sharpest Football Podcast workbook and refer back to it throughout the year and this episode in particular. Josh, sorry you have to be a part of this little administrative stuff as we start off.
Hey,
Robert.
this is all
Yes.
good for me, man.
Okay.
Receiving yards above noob. The Ryan, last year, my first podcast, I was like, I have no idea what you're saying. But now, man,
There you go. And now you're fluent
love it.
in
Yeah.
BuckMetrics, are you?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Nice. So, Robert, hate to break this to you. When you were doing your other podcast, I was talking to the executives at LeanTossup, and we implemented the first rule ever in the history of the Sharpest College Football Podcast. And I thought of it as I was previewing this episode, just preparing for it, and that is, do not dumb here, okay? Not dumb area here. And why did I think that? Because there are a lot of coaches. I don't know if you're familiar. Robert, you're the Canadian here. No offense, Josh. I'm sure that Robert is far more literate than you and I, and he's more familiar with Julius Caesar. You're nodding just as I am. There are some coaches in here that really need to be buried and not praised. I'll just say that for now. I like some of the coaches in here, but the bad ones just really need to be called out. For some reason, that just really stuck out to me when I was just prepping for this conference. This is a way station, and boy, the trucks that are leaving this truck stop really go in two totally different directions when it comes to head coaches. So here's my overview of the Sun Belt, the only conference in FBS that still has divisions. 5 new head coaches. The 3 best from last year left for new jobs. And what does that mean? That means, this is interesting. I didn't realize this till I was prepping. No current Sun Belt head coach has won the conference. So going to be a first-time winner among the head coaches. Last year, this conference had 6 teams with a total power rating of 3+. That's more than the Big 12. Like I said, I believe in this conference for a while, and this makes sense. And yeah, I would probably have James Madison's team last year as a favorite to win the Big 12 this season, just as a sanity check, and probably Troy too, last season's Troy team. Key quarterback departures at James Madison, Troy, South Alabama, Louisiana, and Coastal. So there's a lot of turnover there. One such is internal. Other thing that's interesting is the best 3 defenses last year. You see a lot of red on their returning talent. They're basically experiencing improving metrics. So there figures to be turnover in who's going to be the best defense. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. Any other like global things that either of you see in the conference?
Yeah, I guess I'll take a crack at that first. No, it is interesting that they did have an exodus of coaches, right? Obviously, JMU, their coach is now the head coach of Indiana. Like, it's very clear that the Power Five, and not just on the coaching level, but on the player level too, they're very clearly going down and they're rating Sun Belt, American, lesser extent some of the other ones like Conference USA, MAC. But again, it's hey, we need an offensive lineman. Okay, go get one from the Sun Belt, right? That seems to very clearly be what's happening here, especially
Yeah.
on defense as well. So it's interesting that you're seeing, and it's basically like a league below the league. And again, this is no different. And the thing is, it really gives value for people like us when we go through here and we say, oh, okay, hey, this conference, this if a team, it basically gives us value when we're able to sit down and be like, hey, this team lost a lot, they're not that good, or oh, this team actually gained a lot, they're better than people think they are. It allows us to find value like that. Where other bettors are going to be like, oh, Troy won last year, they're good this year. We're like, yeah, maybe not. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just think the thing that stuck out to me is the returning production across the board
Yeah.
is just really low.
Yep.
And I think it just like when there's lack of returning production, right? And then just don't know, again, these transfers coming in, you just never know what they're going to do at this level. They're unproven. And so I'm it's just hard to predict. I think there's some that are going to be easy to predict, and then some like James Madison, where it's man year over year they've proven with different coaches that they're going to be really solid, but it's a lot of turnover to have. And with Bob Chesney, I think he'll at least turn around by year 2, but can he work magic in year 1?
Yeah.
TBD on that.
Yep. Yeah, and to the point that we were talking about right before that we started here, not a lot of Ryan incoming from, and that's FBS Ryan. So there's not a lot that they're getting from other conferences. Which, to your point, if you're not retaining a lot, it's really tricky. You got to really know the depth charts that I don't. That's not going to stop me from having an opinion, especially in a conference with so many shaky coaches. But I'm going to be probably a little selective with how I actually play these when I get to Vegas in a couple of weeks. All right,
That's
let's
good.
get to the previews. We'll do the Eastern Division first. We will start with Appalachian State. Sorry, I always make that mistake. Mountaineers. Their fifth season under Sean Clark. Mr. Clark is 0-2 in Sun Belt title games, and before he came on board, App State had won 4 straight Sun Belt titles. Um, I'm giving him a little Julius Caesar treatment here. He inherited like an A+ program, and he's got it like at a solid B. Nice, but that's not quite Larry Coker. Sorry, that was mean, Josh. Like, not quite Clay Helton. Clay Helton didn't inherit a great thing. I don't know. I'll think of a better one. But
Coker's
man,
great. We all hate
okay.
him in mine, so you're fine.
Okay. But he really is just taking it down a level. And I do have, by my measure, in Apex, they have the best returning quarterback in the East, pretty much by far. They do retain 81% of their Ryan, the most in the Sun Belt. And like we are talking about in a conference with so many unknowns, that's big. Only starts for this squad last year for this team, 14 career starts. The OL seems to be a question for this team. App State usually feisty on defense. Not so much. Not so much last season. Negative 1.1. They weren't even close to one of the best defenses, which unusual for them. 3 Sunbelt teams with the higher rankings last season all lost their head coaches, so it makes sense just logically to slot them up. They're in the East, which I think is the weaker of the 2 divisions. Definitely has the less depth, and they miss Texas State and Arkansas State, so they miss, by my measure, the 2 best quarterbacks in the West. Season win total of 8 seems pretty doable. You've got 3 almost automatics and probably something close to I don't know, something less than a touchdown either way on the line. I'm guessing at UNC. They're in an easy conference. I think if there's a play here, it's this. They're the favorite to win the Sun Belt at plus 275. That's why they're in green. I get that because they've got pretty much a just don't step in it path to getting to the title game. But I've got a lot of questions about this. So I get the case. This seems one of those horse races where I've got a lot of questions about the favorite, but I've got a lot of questions about the rest of the field too, and I don't know where to go. You're nodding a lot, Josh. Like you agree with me. It's yes, at the end of the day, you're still a question mark like me.
Yeah, question mark. I do though. I think their returning offensive talent for App State is just so good. And Sean Clark, he cut his teeth on being an offensive line coach. And so while there are question marks defensively, I think their offense is going to be good enough to carry them. And again, with Sean Clark's history with the offensive line, I expect him to at least put out a serviceable one. And their offensive coordinator, Frank Ponce, is a really good offensive coordinator. He's been there. It was last year. He was his first year back, but he was actually the OC back 3 years ago, I think, for App State. And they put up really good offenses every year. So I think they're going to score 35 plus points a game, and that could definitely make them good enough. And I remember last year, even defensively, where I think running the ball, like they struggled to stop the run, but they could kind of hang with teams, even like JMU, where they could stop the pass. They could at least hold teams back a little bit. And I think that could be, if those are the same weaknesses this year, then that could be enough for them to be able to, I think, beat most teams. And then I think you see what happens with certain teams in this conference that can keep up with them offensively, like Texas State, and if they get
Yeah.
to the championship game.
It's almost just like saying, geez, there's, I don't know, just 80% chance of them winning the East. And it just, by that point, even though I don't really like this, it just, there seems like there's almost value in that plus 275 just because the path is almost certain. It just, you're just saying, just Aguilar, please don't get hurt. Pulling Louisiana Monroe and Southern Miss from the West is just an absolute gift. I'm going to take a real long look at that over 8, even if you're laying 130. Does that kind of sound right to you, Robert?
It's really iffy. I think you hit the nail on the head when you're like, it's like the race where you're like, okay, bet on the leader, but I have questions about the leader, but I have questions about everybody else as well. I'm not the biggest fan of this App State team for a couple of reasons. They got into the championship game at 9-6, lost the championship game, but like looking here at some of their losses, right? Okay, they were close to North Carolina, but North Carolina wasn't particularly good. They lost to Wyoming. They lost to Coastal Carolina, which was not a good team last year. Lost to Old Dominion, but then they somehow beat JMU. It's such a weird thing, and the thing is, again, I believe this is the same division as JMU, right? So had JMU been bowl eligible, this nonsense wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have been in the championship game. Now, okay, yes, they returned the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, Joey Aguilar. Great, good for them. They actually don't lose a ton of offensive production. Offensive line, that's a problem. Defense wasn't particularly good last year. A lot of shootouts last year. But at the same time, it's just I didn't expect this team to be this good last year, and that was right. But at the same time, they just won. They won enough games to get to the championship game because of JMU, but then they lost the championship game. But I don't know. I feel like something is not right, if that makes sense. I don't want to bet on this App State team, but I don't know who else to bet on. It's really I have no clue. It's you could tell me if you said App State. If you said App State went 6-6, I'd be like, yep, I get it, 100%. But if you also told me they went 10-2, I'd be like, yep, I get it, 100%. Right? That's the level here where it's I have no idea what this team is gonna do. I just don't specifically want to touch it though. That's the thing.
I'd be shocked if they go 6-6, even with the question marks. Just they're that division is so weak, but we will see who's the threat to them in the East. Maybe James Madison. They get this is one of those rare instances, and we love Signetti. We talked about him last year somehow on the ACC pod when we were previewing the ACC pod last year. I think maybe this is heresy. Maybe they upgraded with Chesney. 11 seasons at something called Assumption, which is new to me. Clearly, they've never been in the NCAA tournament because I would have known them from that.
Yeah.
And Holy Cross. I like to look when you're looking at a coach in lower divisions. What were they in conference? Because who knows what kind of paycheck games they did take. 64-13 in conference over those 11 seasons. 7 conference titles in 11 seasons. That's getting near Lance Leipold vibes to me. Dylan Morris comes in. You have to go way, way back to 2020 when Jimmy Lake was like not persona non grata in college football. Dylan Morris had a really good freshman season for Washington. Now, who knows what kind of rust he has since he hasn't really taken many snaps, but just weird context. Dylan Morris was better in the Pac-12 than Jordan McLeod was. And I really like Jordan McLeod, so I could see a path there. With Chesney coming in to replace Signetti, you've just got a huge talent loss. You lose a lot at rear. At quarterback, you're basically having to improve on the offensive line. You lose a ton here at receiver. The biggest part of that is Surratt going to, I think that's how you say his name, going to Indiana.
Yep.
Just got cleaned out on defense. So there's a lot of rebuild here. And the thing that really makes me just, I have questions about, can Chesney coach? Yeah. Long term, is he going to be the right guy? Absolutely. I don't know if he knows how to properly gauge what a Sunbelt talent level player is. I'm looking to Phil Steele too deep, and there is a lot of FCS guys in there. A lot of, I think, Patriot League kind of folks. Yeah, it just seems a little bit of leap of faith for me. Sunbelt champs plus 750, yeah, maybe. Season wins is at 8, sure. This is just a wait and watch this team with close interest. But that's about it. I just can't bet. Logically, they would be the threat to App State, but with all these questions here, even with the App State questions, I think that speaks to why App State is the favorite here. Robert, any other ideas other than I've thrown it here on the Dukes?
Yeah, this is the issue, right? When you're looking at a team like this, lose head coach, lose quarterback, lose, I think, more Ryan than some teams in the Sun Belt had last year.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at, now, okay, obviously they got some back, but that's still not good, though. That's still not good. So, this is the thing. I think it's a real challenge anytime that happens, no matter who the head coach is. I think obviously a good FCS coach, that's good. You obviously don't want a bad FCS coach, but a good. Other teams made that decision, so we'll award them for points for that. But at the same time, I think with all the FCS coaches, there always seems to be some sort of adjustment period for most of them. I think back to the head coach there at Washington State. He came up from Incarnate Word. I think it was the head coach from Incarnate Word. I think that came up with Cam Ward. That was a bit of an adjustment too. I think last year it was a new head coach from FCS for Texas State, if I remember correctly, and he was
BJ,
also
yeah.
again, yeah, they're not bad, but they're not like, oh, this is really good, right? I expect some adjustment from a lower level to upper level, and I think that's what you see here. This, I think, for the season is going to be like the bottom. This is going to be the bottom falls out to some extent, and this is going to be like the bottom of this team. This is going to be like oh, okay, we don't look good this year. We make a bowl, we get close 5-7, 6-6, 7-5, somewhere around there. And then people are like, oh, see, they were only good because of Kirk Sitnetti. They're not good now anymore. And then next year is the year you bet on to win the Sun Belt. That's how the story goes, in my opinion. This is a team that's a year away from being really good at the Sun Belt. That being said, they have App State, and I have huge question marks about App State. But I feel like this team is a year away. I think you need to get into. I think when you lose a caliber coach, we do like Signetti. I think when you lose someone like that, no matter what happens, I think you need to be able to you need a year to regroup and rebuild, and I think that's what this year is going to be for James Madison.
I think so. Although you talked on two aspects of transfers that since Josh is closer to the actual rosters than we are depth charts. Two thoughts. First of all, like I said, my concerns about the FCS players, and specifically, we saw proof of concept at Texas State, but I think there's a big difference in players that are coming out of Texas at Incarnate Word than players from the Northeast and playing in the Patriot League. So I got to see how that plays out. The other thing, too, though, on the topic of transfers in, if they were actually going full rebuild in it, let's prep for next year, I don't know if you'd have Dylan Morris at quarterback. I think you take your lumps. Are you seeing it that way, Josh?
Yeah, Dylan Morris was such an interesting transfer for me because you had Holy Cross. There's a kid Matt Sluka, that rushed for 1,300 yards and had 2,200 yards passing. He was just a killer at Holy Cross, and he's now at UNLV. He's going to take over as the starting quarterback there in the Go offense, which should be really fun. But I question, why didn't Bob Chesney take him, or why didn't Bob Chesney take Jordan McLeod back when he goes to transfer out And he probably would have come back. He didn't. It's not like he transferred up. Obviously, Texas State's a fun offense, but he was left hanging out there for a long time, Jordan McLeod. But you did all this for Dylan Morris, who, if you ask Washington fans, they're like, we're glad that he's gone. So I'm just not sure. And Dylan Morris doesn't fit the archetype of Bob Chesney's last quarterback. So I'm very curious. There's a lot of question marks for me in what he's doing. And look, the guy's obviously a winner. But I think the way that JMU wins, if they do, is through the ground game. So they got Ayo Adeyi from North Texas, who ran for 1,000 yards last year. And then they got George Pettaway coming in from UNC, who's a 4-star recruit coming in. Just got beat out by Amarian Hampton. But he was the guy that, honestly, a lot of analysts that look at like next level, they were all over Pettaway more than Hampton. Pettaway's going to be crazy good at the G5 level in the Sun Belt. And so I can see a way in which if they ride the running game, that they could be really good. But again, those question marks on defense, all these kids that transferred out, they all went to Indiana. They all went Big Ten, D1. I mean, they were good players, and they followed their coach. That's part of it. But they didn't transfer down. They got upgrades. And so I do think that's just too much to overcome in alma mater of JMU. And so I'd love to see them do well. But they've worked magic for a long time and hiring coaches, and I think they will with Bob Chesney again, but year one is going to be really tough to overcome, in my opinion.
That's a great point about going to Indiana, and a lot of those players actually were on. I had JMU as one of the best defenses 2 seasons ago. They were good last season, but 2 seasons ago they were just freaking nasty. Yeah, interesting. So we're all like, wait and see. A little bit of skepticism from you two more than me, but definitely gonna curious how that one plays out. I have a better feeling how this one plays out. I don't think it's well. Charles Huff, 4th season now, 35-18. That's a good record. Got to be clear, not a bad record for a first-time head coach. Let's not forget, Doc Holliday was let go for actually being a lot better than that, though. Just don't want to stereotype here. Dumb politics that spill over from state politics to football in this case, and now you're relatively suffering. They started 4-0 last season, and Robert, you might recall, I actually was exercised by this, and I said, it's going to stop. This team is a fraud. They're not that good. They actually ended the season 2-8, so I'm doing a little bit of a victory lap there. So Huff is an offensive guy. He was a running backs coach at Alabama, I believe. The team that he took over had an offensive rating of 0.7 negative. He took them a little bit of improvement to a 3.1 in the first year, and they've just gone backwards the last 2 years. And when your head coach is an offensive guy, that is really a concern. That's why when I saw them going backwards in 22, I said, yeah, this is not how it should be going. This is not going to end well. Mitch Griffiths, okay. Who knows what happens when you get guys out of that Wake Forest offense? Sometimes it's just, I don't know. It's like going from wiffle ball to playing in the Nerf league. It just, you just don't know what's going to happen. They keep the most of their Ryan. I think most of that is they hit the transfer portal pretty hard here. I don't know who this is, but it looks like they got 1 or 2 decent receivers coming in through the portal. I'm sure more about that than me. I saw this coming. They lost Lance Guidry, and that did not go well for them. They also avoid Texas State and Arkansas State from the West, which is a help. I cannot wait to see this game. This is I don't know. This is like the guy that I really don't like, meeting like my secret crush and just seeing how this goes. And I can't wait to see. I really want Western Michigan to win that game. I really, and you know what? That's going to be on some stupid station I probably don't get if it's on TV at all. But that'll be a fun game for me personally. Day before my birthday too. So maybe Western Michigan will give me a win in that one. Season win total 6. I don't know. The East is such a traffic jam of mediocrity behind basically the top one and then the next one. Maybe they pull out a few wins here. I don't know. If I look at them versus Georgia Southern or Georgia State, I can't really say that I really feel good about any outcome. So they're just unbettable in that regard. 16-1 to win the Sun Belt seems about right. Going back to my question about the big numbers coming in here on the portal on the Ryan, since you seem to know the portal a lot better than me, are there 1 or 2 names that stick out to you, Josh, in terms of who they got coming in?
Yeah. So one, Mitch Griffiths came in and then he retired, like
What?
something over the summer. Yeah. So it looks like their quarterback's gonna be Cole Pennington, Chad Pennington's son, that's coming in, or is
All
the
right, he was
guy.
a little exciting at times last year, right? A
Yeah.
much lesser talented version of Calandria, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. He was definitely better than Fancher, that's for sure.
Yes, that's not saying much.
Yeah. It was disappointing. You saw Mitch Griffiths come in and you go, okay, this guy could do well in the Sun Belt. And then now it's just, God, I don't know. When has, to your point about Charles Huff, I feel like running back coaches that turn into head coaches at the G5 level, like Stan Drayton did it last year at Temple, it hasn't gone well yet. I don't think that's going to go well. And Charles Huff, the same thing. I think, again, to all the points you made were like awesome. And now they're transitioning to an air raid offense with Seth Dodge coming in. You go, is this going to work? I don't know. I mean, this is air raid, and we'll see if it works for them. But now you're changing systems. Are you just throwing stuff at the wall, Charles Huff? So to me, there's way too many questions here. I think maybe the Elijah Metcalf is coming in from Middle Tennessee. He could be good at wide receiver, but again, is Cole Pennington be able to get him the ball? I don't know. Way too many question marks for me. I think the win total at 6, like I don't see 6 wins on this schedule. Virginia Tech,
Really?
Ohio State, I don't
Okay,
think they
yeah.
can get there. Georgia Southern, I don't know if they beat Georgia Southern. Like,
There's a lot
JMU,
of coin flips in that
yeah,
neighborhood. Yeah.
yeah, like Western Michigan. You talked about that one before. I just think there's a lot of games here that I'm not sure that they're gonna make. Maybe they hit 6. I don't see them going 7-5, personally. But
I wouldn't lay 135 to find out.
Yeah.
Is that the Seth Daggy? Remind me. Was he actually head coach at Bowling Green?
no, I think he was. I think he was at like UNT.
Okay. You know what? You know
Um,
what I'm thinking of? To your other point, I think Bowling Green before Loeffler was this is Chef's Kiss stuff. I think it was the Texas Tech running backs coach. Was their
yes,
head
it
coach.
was.
Yes.
It was. What was his name? Finks. What was his name? Jinx.
Jinx. Yeah,
Mike
Mike Jinx.
Jinx.
Yes. And to your
Yes.
point, did not work out well either. Wow. We
Yeah.
just stumbled into that. Robert, are you gonna just tell me I'm totally wrong on Charles Huff here and just shove it in my face when they win 8 games this season?
No, I will say that Mitch Griffiths thing is fascinating. He was like, was it a first year starter for Wake Forest?
Yep.
And then he retired. That's crazy. Now he was weird. I don't know, just not amazing. The thing is, he had relatively good numbers. 10 starts, just shy of 2,000 yards. 15-8 isn't horrible, but in a Wake Forest offense that is graded on a curve, that's not great. Cole Pennington was also not great last year either. Better than Fancher, but not that much better than Fancher. Again, it was interesting, right? This is a team you look at it last year, right? Okay, they beat Albany, East Carolina, Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, and we're like, okay, this is, and even then the Old Dominion lost the Old Dominion game. They only won that one by 6, and we're like, okay, the regression's coming here. And Buck called that straight up, and they lost the next what is it, 5 straight. Yeah,
Yeah.
5, 6 straight. Not again. It was I agree. I don't think this team is that good. I think there's this Sun Belt Conference. I think maybe is just a lot of like teams that either went on streaks last year or got lucky, and now people are like, oh, they could win. Then no, they're not that good. This is like you even see it, right? Like a team that people would say, oh, they started 4-0 last year. They're over under a 6. They could do that again this year. It's no. For some reason, they're playing Virginia Tech and Ohio State. I don't know why they're doing that. They played Virginia Tech last year too. They did manage to beat them though, so there's that. But they're not going to beat Ohio State. That's not happening. And again, very losable game there against Western Michigan. Okay, like some of them are not bad, but outside of that, you get App State, you get Georgia Southern. Old Dominion is never horrible either. James Madison. So there's quite a few losable games on that schedule. So yeah, I'm not. Maybe depending on what price on the under I get, maybe I'll take a bit of the under there. We'll see.
You legitimately
So
could
yeah,
see them starting out 1-4. I think with
yeah,
this schedule.
Probably because
yeah,
let's see. Yeah, because
yeah.
you've got Stony Brook. They probably win that game. Virginia Tech they could
Totally.
lose. Ohio State they could lose. Western Michigan they could lose. App State they could lose. Right. And if they're 1-4, you've got to find 5 wins in the back 7, and that's hard, right? It means you have to be perfect through all those, and that includes JMU, Old Dominion, Georgia Southern, and then yeah, I don't like that either.
You have, and I don't have my phone because I'm distracted and old. Was the was that win over Virginia Tech? Was that like the last Grant Wells game? Either that, it just feels like that was the last chance for Grant Wells before Virginia Tech said, "Okay, we're going to get serious about playing here."
It might have been.
Yeah, I think it was. I
Yeah,
think maybe Kyron Jones played a little bit that game, but
I,
I'm
I'm
looking
very
it up.
comfortable saying that I think this will be a different outcome this year.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too.
Kyron Jones did play that game, but he was new. He was a different player early on, right, in that
yeah,
season than later on for sure.
yeah. All right, we're all the same mind there. Be interesting to see if he makes it to next season. This is an interesting team. Old Dominion. Now, again, going back to last year's ACC preview, somehow you touched upon like the new offense that they had coming in, the guy from Fordham to run their offense. So you got me all excited. And really, I cashed on the over, I think it was 4.5 last year, season wins. But really, by my metrics, the defense is what really got this team going. Um, Ricky Ronnie, although he's not had a great record, he's had 2 bowls in 3 actual seasons that they've played, which nice step up for where they were before. So Grant Wilson, 93 apex in his first FBS season. I can see a path here. This is not a great quarterbacking division, especially now with the breaking news that probably happened 2 months ago, but wasn't in Phil Steele, so I didn't know this that Mitch Griffiths was retired. I could see this being maybe the second best quarterback in the East, especially in the second season in FBS. And if there's any kind of learning curve for the new OC, maybe we can see some improvement there. We better, because the backup is Emmett Moorhead. Ongoing punchline of early 2023. We'll just leave it at that. A couple interesting games here. I think the East Carolina and Bowling Green games at home are going to be instructive. I don't think we get much out of the South Carolina Virginia Tech games. I don't see them really contending or being much of a factor in those, but I can see them going 2-2. East Carolina, I don't know. That's kind of a Rorschach test. You see what you want to see in that team. Bowling Green, I've heard cases made for them. I'm a little bit of a skeptic, but I think if they go 2-0, that's gonna, if they win those 2 games, which will be definitely below the radar, I think that's enough for me to like what this team can do once we get to conference play. They do get who they get: Arkansas State and Texas State, so they get a really tough draw from the West. They get the 2 best quarterbacks from the West. In that big group where there's a lot of questions in the East, I could see them floating to the top of that. Don't know if I will lay 140. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. After they play Bowling Green, I'll have a better idea. Looks like, I think that 4.5 was just a bad number by the folks at DraftKings. They're not going to win the Sun Belt, but enough pieces for a case to at least get way past that 4.5 wins. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I just get concerned that there's so many potentially 50-50 games on the schedule. That Sunbelt schedule is tough. You don't get like ULM or Southern Miss or
No.
even a team that I don't think Troy is going to be very good this year. Like they don't get any of those gimmies. All of these teams could definitely beat ODU, and ODU could also play them. And this is going to be a hard fade for me, just
Wow.
because, just because I don't know. These games are just too close for me, I think, and what could happen. I also though I don't. I was super high on the OC coming in from Fordham, and I think their running game is better at this point than their passing game. They've lost some targets, but will they rely on one guy? They had some talented guys. One of their running backs transferred out to Cal
Wow.
from last year, and he was clearly, I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he was clearly a really good running back, and they just didn't ever lean on it. It's like they forced the passing game so much and didn't play to their personnel, and that concerns me a little bit when OCs seem to be more married to their scheme than the players that they have. And I like Aaron Young coming in from Rutgers there. I think he can be a very good back. But will they adjust enough and play to their strengths? I don't know. Because these wide receivers, for me, they lost some talent. They lost, blanking on the guy's name right now, but he transferred out to Duke. 2 offensive players, right? One transfers to Cal, one transfers over here to Duke. Those are lower level ACC schools, middle of the road. That's those are losses, right? These are
Yeah.
guys that transferred up. So I just have question marks about ODU. I do think overall, like this is meta, but I think ODU is a sleeping giant. If they get the
Yeah.
right coach in there, we've seen them put up great offensive numbers before because they're in that recruiting fertile Virginia Beach area that could really have
Yep.
some good players. So I'm a little skeptical of Ricky and his ability, but I think if he doesn't do it this year, I think they need to fire him and get somebody else coming in. Like the Sean Clarks of the world just need to be fired, and knowing you don't got it, and get somebody else in there quickly.
You're giving him the Julius Caesar, huh?
Yep, I'm
You're
going
gonna
with the theme of the show, man.
you're gonna bury him. All right, Robert, you're gonna bury Ricky Ronnie too. 2 bowls in 3 seasons at Old Dominion.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'd say this team is definitely improved. They seem to have at least a 21 and 22, 21 and 23, sorry, hit some sort of ceiling here where they can't seem to get through that 6-6 ceiling there. So that is concerning. But at the same time, though, the over/under is 4.5. We're getting value on betting on them to make a bowl right here. And South Carolina, no. East Carolina, maybe. Bowling Green, maybe. Coastal, maybe. There is a lot of 50-50s here. But again, you only need to get 5 of 10ish of them. About half. You need half of a half. Not half of a half. Half, you get the point. It's not bad, but it's also not great. You are getting plus value on it too. I don't know. This could be a team that struggles, but even if this team gets to 5 wins, even if they're sitting here at the end of the season on a 5th win looking for a 6th win, you've already cashed your over, right? We're not betting on this team to win the Sun Belt. We're not betting on this team to make. We don't need to get it to a bowl. We just need to get into a position to get to a bowl, right? I don't mind the over, but again, yeah, I think this team is somewhat limited. But maybe that's the coach. Maybe they just need more time to rebuild. I don't know. But with their current quarterback, this is not like a extremely competitive team. But they could probably peel off a win here or there.
Are you calling for Emmett Moorhead? Let me just make a note of that. Do my dig mover. Robert wants Emmett Moorhead to start for Old Dominion. Okay, it's noted. uh, my favorite game here. Just twist his words. All right. Yeah, guess who's getting the Julius Caesar treatment here? Big shocker, Clay Helton. Yeah, they went to a bowl the first season. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Split Zone Duo podcast? Yeah, so Stephen Godfrey, Georgia Southern alum, he was just way too excited about the Clay Holton thing. It's just I don't know, bro. So now his dad is upset as a also Georgia Southern guy. So, and just to illustrate that point, hey, Davis Brin went from a 119 apex at Tulsa to a 73 at Georgia Southern. Good job. You wonder what Sam Darnold would have done with a different head coach at USC. The new quarterback is a guy named J.C. French. He has 16 career pass attempts. Good for him. Inexperienced offensive line, and I don't know. The more Clay Helton went along at USC, just the worse the lines got. The defense should improve. You've got a very high improvement metric here. They need to. They stunk last season for a pretty feisty conference. Phil Steele has Georgia Southern ahead of JMU. Sorry, no. Over a
Yeah.
season, I'll take Mr. Chesney and all his questions over all the knowns I have about Clay Helton. Seems like the market's with me. Season win total of 5.5. The under is getting crushed here. Sunbelt champs. Um, I think that this is one of those teams that's probably in the traffic jam of mediocre, but I think that swords up towards the bottom. Again, just going back to Davis Brin and what he did last season, now basically we have a Clay Helton product, and good luck with how that goes. I just don't see it working here, but maybe Georgia Southern doesn't have the money to buy him out. God's sake, he's probably still getting USC money at this point. I don't know. I don't see it happening for the Eagles. What about you, Robert?
Yeah, no, it's a little iffy for me. I don't think this team is good. I think they're kind of the worst team of the between Georgia Southern and Georgia State. But yeah, this team I think upset. They upset Nebraska, right? That was the Scott Frost final game, right? Yeah. But see, the thing is that's it though, right? Okay, cool. We had that one really good game where we buried him, but then outside of that, one of the reasons why that game is so funny is because this has not been the best team, right? Okay, they've made a bowl the last 2 seasons, but that's it. There's very clearly a ceiling here of how good this team is. The year before that, 21, they didn't even get close. Yeah, Clay Helton has not done a particularly great job at program building here, and Yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in. I didn't have a ton of faith in Davis Brin, and yeah, you're basically starting at fresh with someone new, an inexperienced O line, and a coach that I don't think is really good at developing a program. Yeah, that's don't like that.
No. You've got to make it unanimous here, Josh. There's no way you're going to talk us out of this, are you?
I do. I do like. They have some pieces on offense that are good, but not enough to overcome their schedule. And yeah, Hilton trying to reinvent himself is funny. I do think he's tried to do the best copycat of his brother over
Yeah.
there at Western Kentucky and try to borrow from him. You can get the image and you can try to trace it, but it's just hard to. If you're not a good coach, you're not a good coach. I think that's just bottom line. If you can't assess talent and ability, it doesn't. It's not that hard to find quarterbacks that can succeed in this type of air raid offense, and yet they go out and get Davis Brin. Like, you could have figured out somebody better than that. And then now J.C. French, Dexter Williams, those are the two options at quarterback. Like, again, like, you could have figured out with all these guys that transferring around, you could have figured out a better fit for your system, and they just haven't done it.
All right. Julius Caesar, Clay Hilton, thank you so much. I know this is early. I know he went 8-5, but man, Tim Beck, I know you agree with me because you said so on on another pod about another conference. Tim Beck is no bueno, and he just has to prove the point. I don't know what he did with McCall. It was the most bizarre thing last season. Like, it's like he wanted him to stop running, then he gets hurt, and then he has Ethan Vasco running around. It makes no sense at all. It just Vasco ran for way more yards per game than McCall. Nothing makes sense, and they go 3 with 1. The Vasco's a starter, so then all right, then let's bring in Noah Kim. Yeah, the jokes just write themselves sometimes. This is just, it's hard to remember. Just a year and a half ago, this was a compelling program, and now it's just suddenly not. I don't even care. I want to see him just get crushed at Jacksonville State. At Virginia is, if what's his name just gets it right and just says, Tony Muskett, have a seat, that could be a fun game. Virginia should win that, but otherwise, I just don't care. I don't have much on this team. Do you have more than I do, Robert?
No, this is a team that went 8-5 that should have probably been at best 6-6, right? There's a lot of games in here that they probably should have lost, just straight up lost. Texas State, again, we talked about that at the podcast. We're like, how did Texas State lose to Coastal? They were favorites. Again, we called that at the beginning of the season. We're like, oh, Texas State upset against Coastal, and it's they closed as a favorite. There was a great call on that, but then they lose that game outright. There's that. They beat Old Dominion as well. They beat App State somehow through, I'm assuming, some sort of miracle. Arkansas State, again, their Arkansas State wasn't particularly great. They beat Jacksonville State somehow. Again, like, how does this happen? I don't understand how they beat Jacksonville State last year. Jacksonville State was actually a good team. They were a good team, and they beat them by a lot. That is that Jacksonville State, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that same. There could be a different Jacksonville State. I don't know, but no, it's this is the thing, and I love the idea that, like, oh, okay, because this isn't even the first a school that's tried the idea of, oh, we lost our quarterback, let's replace them with a quarterback from Michigan State. Auburn did the same thing, and that did not work out well for them either. And this is like, when in no time ever should you be like, oh, I get it. The solution is we replace our guy with someone from Michigan State. That just don't do that. That's not how this works. Noah Kim was not good, to put it mildly. He was okay given the situation. He was okay given the fact that the head coach was fired and the entire program was collapsing. Okay, he's
Here
okay
we
for
go.
that.
Robert likes Noah Kim. Also going to the notebook here.
What was he last year? 8, 9, and
He had
6. That's
he had a 70 apex.
70 apex. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not great, but given the fact that, okay, maybe you can adjust that. Maybe give him 10
Yep.
apex points for whatever. But again, not good. This is not like, oh yeah, they've got their quarterback in the future now. They've got Noah Kim. No, that's not the point here. And this team should have regressed last year even harder. They somehow found their way to win games in unlikely ways. Looking at their losses, they lost to Army somehow, and they lost to James Madison absolutely brutally, 56-14. This was not a good team, and they got really lucky in a lot of games. But I think if you're saying, okay, and again, with the 6.5, you're basically saying, yep, okay, they're going to be a good team this year, at least a bowl team. I don't think they are, right? And I think, again, replacing Noah Kim is not the solution. That's my takeaway from this. Noah Kim is not the solution.
Yeah, I forgot that you're a JMU guy, so you just have to be delighted that Tim Beck is at one of your division rivals. It's just
Yeah.
it's like the whole rest of the Pac-12. What is USC doing with Clay Helton? Come on,
Yeah.
is it the same thing?
It's Chip Lindsey all over again. It's like, how do
It
these
is.
guys fail up? I
Yeah.
don't understand. And like Tim Beck, like he was awful at University of Texas years ago. And
Yes.
then he was awful at NC State. He had talent there and he just squandered it. And then you fall into a program that like they hire, Coastal Carolina hires Jamie Chadwell, who's just like amazing.
Yeah.
And then you hire Tim Beck. That means you accidentally hired a
Oh yeah.
good coach in Jamie Chadwell. This
Totally.
is showing your true colors. And this is unbelievable, like how bad. Yeah, Tim Beck, like to me, like having watched him at two different schools pretty closely, just has no offensive identity. And I don't
Mm-mm.
understand. And that's what he makes his money on. It's like, how did they win a few games? Well, they had Grayson McCall, who, oh yeah, North Carolina State is ecstatic to have him because he's not going to be this elite quarterback. He's not going to have this like crazy good arm, but he's going to do the things he needs to do really well, and he's going to be consistent. And he's going to be a good ACC quarterback that was playing in the Sun Belt last year.
What is Chadwell's background? Do you know where he was before Coastal? I don't have my phone. So I would look this up. I'm just wondering if he was like nearby.
I don't remember where he was. I don't because I've listened to this whole podcast of Willie Korn, his OC, but I can't remember. I know Willie's pretty young, so maybe Furman, but I don't remember where they
Okay,
were
that
before
would
all
make
this.
sense. Nearby, and they probably just
Yeah,
did the. Oh, Tim Beck's nearby. That was clearly the secret of the success
yeah,
last time. Just,
yeah,
I don't get it. Yeah,
just
not a
crazy.
well-run organization there. Good job. I don't have much here. Georgia State. They start out with Del McGee. I don't know, great or not. This Value kid had some rough numbers at Pitt, but I like that they're starting over here rather than going to just wasting the season. So that makes sense. This is a good sign if I'm a Georgia State fan. They actually kept a lot of guys that went up the learning curve last year on defense, which is a good sign, especially for somebody. I think Del McGee was a running backs coach. Wait a minute.
Our theory.
I'm I'm suddenly more concerned. Wait and see. Then they get both Texas State and Arkansas State from the West. I could see them favored in maybe one game. This could be rough. You don't know about the bottom of the East, but man, I don't know. I think it'll be a rough season for year one. Under is taking 150, under 4.5. Maybe longer term again. The things I look at longer term is something like this, where you get a little the guys believing in you before they leave. So that's all I have. Do you have anything more in Georgia State that I might know then, Eric Josh?
They're losing everything. Robert Lewis went over to Auburn. He was their top wide receiver. They lose their quarterback. Marcus Carroll transfers out, their stud running back. He transfers over to Missouri. So I just don't. Christian Valu's coming in, but I don't even know what they have left. I know what they have, and it's not great. So I just don't know. Defensively, their defense is going to have to carry them, if anything, because their offense just isn't there. And then Jim Chaney, they bring in this retread
Oh no,
OC.
really?
It reminds me of like when talking about Bowling Green, like
Yeah.
Scott Loeffler, and like he's hiring a bunch of old like Big Ten OCs and DCs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, going back isn't the way to go forward and to win at the G5 level. And so I'm a tad concerned about some of the hire. I like to look at hires that these guys make as new head coaches. And that concerns me a little bit that you just went with Jim Chaney, who just hasn't been good at running an offense for 5-10 years. So I don't know. I'm pretty out on Georgia State this year. I think they're going to be. I think you see the under at 150 on a 4.5 win total. I think other people
Yeah.
are with us.
That doesn't paint a pretty picture. You
No.
got anything more on these guys, Robert? It seems like a blank slate that's trajectory negative for this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that he'll probably get more out of the quarterback than Narduzzi did at Pitt. It's not saying a lot, but okay. This is probably not something you bet early season, but this is something where like mid season you if this team seems like they're starting to become a bit more competitive in games, that's when because you'll get something like a 14 and a half, a 17 and a half, a 21 and a half, something against App State, at Marshall, Coastal, right? This is where you can get a spot where you're getting like 21 points, 14 points. Like you can get them as a massive dog in a game where, especially if App State's coming, like you can catch some team completely off guard with a team that's improving. So that's where you could see value in this in like a mid-season play on something, maybe.
Just the less bad than Tim Beck play
Yeah.
to end the season. Yeah, okay. All right. That is the East.
Hey, quick correction on Jamie Chadwell was actually at Charleston Southern
Here you go.
before. Yeah, so
Yep.
yep,
Neighboring,
and went
right?
yep
Yeah.
neighboring, and then went 10-3 a couple times. Obviously, run that super fun offense. So there you go.
Coastal was no threat to hire Bob Chesney, for example. Correct? Is that fair?
No, no,
Okay.
not finding any diamonds in the rough for sure.
Good info. All right. That is the East.
Yep.
All right. The West Division of the Sun Belt. Let's take a look here. I had such a fun time last season talking about this team that I bought their T-shirt once they covered the over. They had a low total, like 4.5, I think, last season wins. The GJ Kenny thing was a fun thing. I remember you saw they got what do they call him? The Big Poncher Train. Was that his nickname? TJ Finley when he was at LSU. He brought in a lot of guys from Incarnate Word, and it all worked out. 8-5 they win. You kidding me? They were 23-72 the season before GJ Kinney came in. Best season of that stretch was 4-8. So right away, you can see here, what I love with the new coach, proof of concept. 2 seasons before he came on board, the offense was a negative 6.5, negative 7.5. They improved by 10 points to a plus 2.6. Right away, boom. Their preseason Ryan was 10th coming into the season, so it's not like they had a bunch of pieces. He basically had to bring his own pieces from Incarnate Word. This is nuts. Their offensive line metrics, so these metrics right here for last season, they had no returning starts for the program. They had 12 FBS career starts. They had no improvement metric, and they had only 5 prime starts that came in. The fact that they improved 10 points with that is absolutely nuts. Balanced offense. They actually were second in the Sun Belt if you add these two, your GGAB and your Ryan. So your total of those two, just basically how you're above average in passing and running. And this is in season 1. Not outrageous to say, I think, / pretty clear, you're upgrading with Jordan McLeod over TJ Finley. God bless TJ Finley. Got the defense, you got the offensive player of the year coming in. The defense was rough, but all of these metrics were red for them last year. So it figured to be rough. Not quite the green I would want to see here, but it should be better because last season was just going to be really rough. They miss App State from the East, like by far the best in the East. They also miss James Madison, like your 2B to their 1A, if you will. I think they're favored in. I don't think it's outrageous to say they could be favored in all 12 games. I don't know if would you lay points with UTSA or Arizona State against this team? I would not. This 8 seems like a freaking steal. I don't love this. Robert, you might remember when we did the futures preview, they were at 550. I don't want to say I moved markets, but they've come down 150 points on FanDuel. Hi, FanDuel, if you're watching this, you morons. Probably value here. It's going to be hard not to bet that. I love the 8. Again, I think they're going to be favored in 12 games. I cannot see passing this up. I don't love laying 1 forward ordinarily. Maybe I can look for an alt line when I'm in Vegas and try to even find an 8.5 or down to 9. But I think that's the way to play this team.
I just have a quick update about the line. The line I'm currently seeing on Bet365 is over 8.5 plus 110.
Yeah, I'd take that in a heartbeat. All right, would you? Just hand it off to you, Robert.
Yeah, I agree. I think this team is really good. For some reason, I'm just looking at Phil Steele here. Texas State is really far back. He has App State number 1, which okay, and then Marshall is number 2, which is definitely not right.
Oh,
And then
that's division. That's division. Don't no. You're
oh, is it by division?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. So yeah, he has them as number one in the West. That makes a lot more sense. They should be number one in the West. There we go. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, yeah, no, this team is gonna be really good, right? This team, like it looked like this team took down Baylor as 27-point underdogs. That was
Yep.
nuts. Like that was the game where it's like, hey, this team is here to play, and we were like, okay, Baylor's maybe not that good, but like good, should have been better than Texas State, right? They did struggle to close out the season again, somehow losing to Coastal Carolina. Not sure how that happened. Also lost to Troy. That one's a bit iffy too. Troy was not good, but they were somehow good.
No,
So
Troy won the Sun Belt. Come on, I can forgive that.
yeah, true, but Troy was just weirdly not. I don't know. It's just a weird thing with Troy last year. But then they also lost to Louisiana, which was weird. But
Yeah.
they almost beat UTSA. And they lost to Arkansas State. This team is actually okay. They led up 77 points against Arkansas State, which is notable because I don't think I've ever seen a team score 77 points in a game. But no, this team could win the Sun Belt easily. Plus 400 is not even that bad. Over 8.5. Okay, let's just give Arkansas State and Troy. Okay, 10. Okay, you could beat Lamar.
I'm
You could
not.
beat UTSA. You could beat Arizona State. You could definitely beat Sam Houston State. There's a lot of winnable games here. They did collapse, I guess collapse in quotation marks, a little towards the end of last season, but this team is still very good. The idea that again, it was a first-year coach. This is now a second-year head coach. Yeah, they lost T.J. Finley, who seemed to be a huge offensive spark for this program, but they picked up Jordan McLeod, which is arguably not much of a downgrade, to be honest with you. No, I really do like this team, and I love the over 8.5, and this team is definitely competitive for the conference championship.
Yeah, let me ask you then, Josh. I do you how many games do you see them favored in? Don't need you to run them all down, but
Oh, I think at least 10,
yeah.
right? Like
And
even their
dogs
hard
to who?
games. Yeah, their hard game. Yeah, I don't even like maybe UTSA like a -1 or something, or them +1. But you get like all the UTSA at home, right? Arizona
Yeah.
State at home, Louisiana at home. That's to me the third
Yep.
hardest game on the
Yep.
schedule. And that's so maybe they are favored in every game, right? I don't
Yeah.
know how much they'll factor in with UTSA is the one for me that I'm like, like they're always good, right? And Jeff
Yep.
Traylor's an elite coach, but I think GJ Kenny's going to be I think he could be at Baylor next year, taking over there once they fire Dave Aranda. I think GJ Kenny's just this has been okay. This is going back a little bit, but there's one guy that just always hires elite offensive coordinators, and it's Todd Graham. Remember Todd Graham from Arizona State?
Oh, do I remember Todd Graham? Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then at Hawaii, you know
Yep.
who he hired as his OC?
No. Was it GJ Kinney?
GJ Kenny.
You got to be kidding me.
No, he hired GJ Kenny at Hawaii. And that was the first time I heard him because I was like, everywhere Todd Graham goes, I look for his OCs. He hired Mike Norvell back in the day, Billy Napier, and then he hired GJ Kenny. And then GJ Kenny went to UCF and then went Incarnate Word and then came over and really, for the first time, really got to run his offense at Incarnate Word. And so, anyways, all that long stories, I think GJ Kenny is just offensive genius, and I think he's a future star in coaching. Obviously, that's not a hot take, but yeah, I think this team is awesome. They're returning so many pieces as far as that skill position, right? Cole Wilson, Joey Hobert, Ishmael Mahdi. They got the UTEP running backs coach coming in. And he's bringing in Torrance Burgess and Deion Hankins, who are both very good running backs at UTEP in the Conference USA. So they have a lot of like pieces. You look at this and you go, how do they not score 35 points
Yeah.
a game? They upgraded a huge upgrade, in my opinion, in Jordan McLeod and what he'll be asked to do versus TJ Finley. So I just don't see, even if some of these teams are even decent defensively, there's no way they're going to be able to put up points with Texas State on the schedule, except, again, maybe UTSA.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. So I definitely love this one. Just 8.5. I'll take all of that. This is the weird counterpart to my Kennesaw State under in Conference USA. That's how much I love this one.
I love it.
Surprisingly, this is why I love doing this podcast. I was a little biased here because when Napier left for Florida and all the dopes that do national podcasts and really don't know what the hell were saying, oh well, Louisiana, they're still going to be good. They got a lot of pieces. No, they didn't, and I think they went 6-6 or 5-7 his first year, Desormeaux, and everybody disappeared on him. And then I just had retina Desormeaux was like he's an internal promotion, which I don't like. And here's what he was in a rough spot his first year. The offense was not great, negative 2.7. And that was a rebuild year. I don't know why the national media missed that, just because they're stupid, I guess. They made a big step forward. That's almost 6 points improvement on offense from year one to year two, once there's a little bit of continuity. This is what I love, and I did not expect this at all. And you don't see this at many programs. They had three guys that took serious snaps last year: Zion Chris, Chandler Fields, and Ben Woolridge. Now, before the season, before I'd done this analysis, I was just tossing Louisiana because the only thing I really liked about them was Zion Chris. He was really good last season, and he went to Houston with Willie Fritz, which is going to be really interesting to watch. So his backup had an apex of 100. The third string guy had an apex of 102. That is like serious. This guy's got a freaking system, and he can plug and play. It's like, I'm gonna mess this up. Where is Louisiana is north? Would that be like he's like the Lincoln Riley of the Delta? Do I have my geography right on this, or would it be of the Bayou? I don't know. You're
Think it's
closer
the
than I am.
Bayou
Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's
in
yeah.
Lafayette.
the Lincoln Riley of the Bayou. You don't see this many guys. If USC had their third string guy, they'd be dead. You just don't see it. You saw what happened to Florida State last year, right? It just wasn't there, and that was in year 4 of Norvell. Experienced offensive line. The defense was the 5th best in the Sun Belt, and they have the 2nd highest improvement metric. There is sneaky a lot of pieces in here. As a Texas State backer, this is one of those games that scares me. They've got balance on offense and defense, possibly. I'm hoping that I can get a number that's like south of 30 in this one. No idea how tough it is to play at Kennesaw State, he said sarcastically, but that team is not ready for prime time, and that's going to be ugly. Could be a little bit of luck regression here as well. They were actually negative 1.5 games in luck, so they're in green because they actually just could get regression, probably with like consistent quarterback play and not having to play 3 guys. I don't know if I want to play them over 7.5, but I'm going to look to play them in spots, like I said. Kennesaw State, maybe even Tulane. That's interesting if that's too big of a number. And Wake Forest. There's some opportunities here to play them early before I get my metrics out. I did not expect to like them there. I was just going to write them off as a program, but I like them a lot more than I expected. Robert, does it hurt you to see that Napier's former program doing so well without him?
They're not bad. They actually did. I think we expected them to do a lot worse last year than they actually ended up doing. I think they did. They were better than expected slightly. They were 6-6, right? But the pieces are there for this team to be at minimum above average, an above average Sun Belt team. They can definitely do some damage in some of these spots, right? At Texas State, like this thing, this is going to be a team where you're going to find them value. You're going to find value places on them all over the board, right? It's going to be like, oh, that spread's too high or that spread's too low. Oh, they're 3.5 point favorites against this team. They should be 10 point favorites, right? This is going to be like a value team in a lot of these cases. And I think I actually played them a couple times last year as well. Like, this team upset South Alabama last year. They lost some games that you definitely should have won. And they almost took down Troy, and they destroyed ULM at the end. But again, this team isn't bad. They've definitely come a lot further than I think we would have thought based on the results there with Napier leaving. And again, they're only basically a 500 team since he's left, but the pieces are there. This team may not necessarily be horrible.
Yeah, I think more than them just not being horrible, I think they're going to be really good. You just talked about how great their quarterbacks were last year, and yet their running backs, Draylon Washington, who I think was a redshirt freshman, Elijah Davis, who was a true freshman, I think, last year. I mean, both had very strong, I think each of them had a 100-yard game in different games, but they're both very good running backs. This offense, I think, could be really good this year. Louisiana, I think, is, for me, the 3rd best team in this conference behind.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
behind App
I
State and
think
Texas
so.
State.
Yeah.
And you look at the schedule too, and you go, all right, you're tough games here. Tulane potentially, Arkansas State, South Alabama. These are teams that you get at home. Obviously, Texas State, App State. Let me reverse that. Some of the games that I would see as some of the 50-50 games you get at home,
Yeah,
which is I
yeah.
guess is
Like
what I'm trying to say.
they take them
Yeah.
from coin flip to like, all right, I'd rather have
Yeah.
this one at home.
Yeah, you're
Like
not
I'm
going to
not going to
be
be Texas State. I'll burn a road game there.
exactly. But Tulane, like, that's a 50-50 for me with the transition in coaches, and it's at home. And then I think you
Dude,
got. Go ahead.
yes. Sorry, that's one of my sneaky. You see this every once in a while. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
and this is going to be where I reference something. I do this all the time with movies, and Robert's like, "Nope, haven't seen that movie." When Tom O'Brien went from Boston College to NC State, season that they played Boston College, BC just crushed them because the BC players like we know all those plays.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe a little bit of the same where Louisiana staff knows better than the Tulane players what Fritz is trying to do.
Yep. Yeah, possibly for sure. Yeah, it could be very interesting. I do the former Troy coach. You
Or
never
yeah,
know.
if I'm
Again,
wrong,
year
not
one.
Fritz.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So we'll see. But I do like Louisiana this year. I just think that they
yeah.
have a lot of outs on offense. And yeah, I'm with you. I think everything you said though, like I was not expecting Michael to be a very good head coach because it's an internal hire. They keep the
Yeah.
band together type deal. Like he's the homegrown boy. The narratives in
Yeah.
the local newspapers were just insane. And I'm like, this is recipe for disaster. And here we are.
Oh, okay. Wow. I feel validated once again. You earned an invite back for another time with that. Make me feel smart. That always works. Because uh, what doesn't make me feel smart is this. I was so against Arkansas State last year. And God bless this kid, Jalen Rayner, just came in and just took a dump on my head. Literally, that's the only way I lost that game. Of course, Butch Jones is like getting a lifetime achievement Julius Caesar award here. He stinks. He
Yeah.
stinks. He stinks. All he's done is like gravy train off of Brian Kelly, and then you saw what happened when he couldn't do that at Tennessee, and you've seen it here. This is going to be a quick one. I just want to know how you can have an awesome quarterback like Jalen Rayner, apex of 135, in his first year as a starter, and yet basically you have a power rating of 0 on offense. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happens in the Big Ten. How do you do that in the Sun Belt? That's just it's he's making light bend. It just like the guy in South Florida, sorry, Coral Gables. It's almost that bad. I don't know how he does that. The defense is always stunk under them. It's not going to get much better. I have no reason to expect why. This is interesting. They actually have three pairings of back-to-back road games, and there's no bye breaks in between them. It does seem low when you have a great quarterback like Rayner. This is way too much to lay when your head coach is Butch Jones. That's the end of today's sermon. I don't really have much more. Robert, you can just should I make it up now? Robert likes Butch Jones, or go ahead. You can take it from here.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. The quarterback is good, but the results on this team have been horrible, right? And I think it's weird that the luck isn't even that high. It's not like the quarterback just saved them like 2, 3 wins or something, which is usually what you see when you see a quarterback that good and a team fundamentals that low, right? So they actually were able to win. They beat Texas State last year, lost to Coastal, which is again weird, but fine. Again, honestly with Coastal, it's oh they should have beaten that team. No, they lost against them. Oh, they should have beaten that. They should have lost that team. They beat them. It's the weirdest. There's no way to figure out. If you look back at Coastal schedule, the exact opposite of every game I think happened. But no, it's the problem is this is the inevitable. Is it the quarterback or is it the coach? Is it the quarterback or the coach? Again, this is like a great. This guy probably should not be on this team anymore. If people in the transfer poll knew what they were doing, this guy should be in like a SEC school probably. But this is he's still here, right? So it's questionable as to whether or not you can overcome that. The wins they did have, though, again, Texas State probably shouldn't have been able to beat Texas State, although you did put up 77 against Texas State. So if their defense was even remotely capable of stopping them, you probably would have lost that game. You beat Louisiana, again, a team we. So they got lost to some teams they should have beaten, beat some teams they probably should have lost to. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't want to touch this team. This is a team that you're going to
It's
be
almost sorry
scared
to
of.
interrupt you. But it's like it's almost like you're saying that they're poorly coached. You can't be saying that, can you?
No, yeah. What is it? An 11-26 record as a head coach. And overall, what's his overall record? 95 and 80. That seems a
Yeah,
bit
no,
high,
take about
but
70 of Brian Kelly's wind in the sails out of that, and you'll get a
yeah.
better approximation.
But
So,
like it's crazy. Like this just seems like the question is, can Jalen Rayner basically replicate? And if he can, great. This team's gonna go to a bowl game. If not, ooh, right, this team goes right back to 3-4 wins. So, and even if
yeah.
they do, right, like but everything else is pretty okay, right? Like the defense is not losing a ton. Like nothing is, oh, this got better and this got worse. Everything is basically the same, right? Which is generally an indicator of this team is okay, right? They lost some Ryan, but they didn't lose that much. They're pretty okay. So it's a weird scenario, but I don't want to touch this, but I think this team is just going to randomly surprise a couple of teams and lose games they probably should win.
That is exactly why I'm a little scared to take Texas State to win the Sun Belt, because you still have divisional play. They beat Texas State last year. You've got the quarterback that can, if any, that's between this team and Louisiana. Just take it back. This quarterback and the Louisiana team, I could see a threat there. I just, over the long season, Texas State's going to win. I think there's enough kind of just stupid things between Butch Jones and this quarterback that they could beat Texas State on the right day, and that's about it. Otherwise, I don't know, 5.5. You've just got you've got crosswinds here. You've got Butch Jones and you've got Jalen Rayner, and I don't know what you got more color than that, Josh.
Let's just make this all about Texas State
There you
because
go.
I thought y'all did a great job of talking about this, but Texas State is gonna get a nice game against Arkansas State. Are there? Look, State's gonna come off of playing Michigan on the road, Iowa State on the road, and then South Alabama, who I think is gonna be a good offensive team. Those are three like tough games in a row, and then you get to play Texas State. That sets up nicely for Texas State to be able to beat them in that game for sure. I don't know. Arkansas State, exactly what you said. If they didn't have Butch Jones and they brought in some crazy guru offensive mind that could build an offense around Jalen Rayner, then I'd have a lot more belief in this team. But they didn't do that. So here we are.
But they didn't do that. If only Todd Graham was here and he could just work some magic with one of his assistants here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think this is a trifecta we're going for here. We're going to have a third Julius Caesaring here. Um, I don't think the college football world really just understands how hopeless this is. Will Hall has been really no bueno. Yeah, he improved the offense. They took a step back to 15.0, but 3 years and you're basically just still sucking air on offense. That's your side of the ball. When I was looking at this, I thought, my gosh, look at this apex for their incoming quarterback. And I remembered, oh, it's Tate Rodemaker. And I did a little deeper dive here. Apex of a nifty 438 in cleanup duty. Apparently, he just had a lot of long completions in garbage time. As a starter, not so good, 61. So I'm officially not worried about that. Going to do a little bit of a victory lap here. I actually said this is going to happen. Their defense took a real step forward under Austin Armstrong, and then he left, and that just went through the freaking floor. It lost 9.4 points in power rating. You can see here, they were in the performance metrics last season. They were red, meaning extremely below average in all four. Only 3 defenses in all FBS can say that. So congratulations on being an outlier and not in a great way there. Will Hall, offensive guy. Hey, you wasted Frank Gore Jr.'s career. Good job. I'm looking at the schedule. I'll have him favored against Southeast Louisiana. I actually looked, and that's not really a good FCS team. Favored against Louisiana Monroe. I can't see him favored in any other games. This 4.5, and again, this is a DraftKings, so who knows? Whoever made that line either should be fired or made the next CEO. Who knows with that company? You can see that number's getting crushed. If this number was 3, I'd play it under. I can't see more than 2 wins, and that Louisiana Monroe game that's got sickos written all over it. The only reason I think Will Hall might survive this season is this place is freaking broke. But I love this as much as I love the Kennesaw State underplay as well, just for context. So my Kennesaw State of the Sun Belt. You've got to agree with me on this, Robert. Yes?
Yeah, full disclosure, when I was doing the preview for this. So again, a lot of news happens in the college football off season and for my job. So from time to time, I miss one or two things. So when I flipped to the Southern Miss page, I was like, oh, who's their new head coach? I'm sure they fired their head coach. And much to my surprise, they did not. It's still the same head coach. I'm like, what? They didn't? Why would they not fire their head coach? I was like, that's still the same guy. But yeah, apparently it's still the same guy. Yeah, that's cool. I'm like, oh, you go 3-9 after going 3-9 two of the last 3 years. Of course you're gonna fire your head coach. Apparently not. Yeah. Yeah, Tate Rodmaker is interesting because if you remember correctly, he is the quarterback who cleaned up for Jordan Travis, and he came in and played against it was two starts, right? It was Florida and then the ACC championship game. He won both of those games barely. Probably should have lost to Florida. Louisville just decided to throw that game for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but they did. I don't know. It was so weird. Like Louisville just was Florida threw the game against Florida State, and then for some reason Louisville came out full power, and they're like, we need to win this game. Why? But anyway, it's just yeah, he was not particularly great. I don't know how he has 2 wins, but he somehow does have 2 wins. Now, I don't necessarily think that's necessarily his fault. Being thrown in the middle of a season when the entire season's on the line is insanely pressure filled. That being said, though, if they thought he was good, DJU would not be the quarterback at Florida State, and he would still be on Florida State's roster. So it's very clear that they don't have faith in him there at Florida State, and they're like, yeah, you can go hit the road. And that's not a great sign. But no, Frank Gore Jr. was this entire team. They had no quarterback. They had a running back. That was their team. They still don't have a quarterback. And now they just don't have Frank Gore Jr. So I don't know why you think this team would improve, which technically 4.5 would be an improvement over the last season's 3-9. So I don't know why people would think this team would improve. Okay. Yeah, I like the under. Unfortunately, you have to lay minus 160 with it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, like this is not a good team. There's no way this team has improved in any way. Their defense is worse. Their offense doesn't show it, but it's also worse too. So I don't know why people are like, this is a good team. This is not a good team. This isn't even an average team. This isn't even a below average team. This is like
No.
one of the worst teams in the conference.
In the conference, they have like bottom 10 potential for the country for FBS. I don't want to assume, Josh. I'm reading your body language. It looked like you were looking at the schedule and just trying to pick out like the third win. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Bad. Yeah, it's not there. It's not there. Yeah, I just don't
No.
see how they're. Will Hall was just such a horrible. They haven't made a good hire. Todd Monken had one good year, right? But other than that, since Larry Fedora, like they
Yeah.
just haven't made good hires, and it's really sad. I'm sure our
And
boy
then Monken just like immediately leave, just say, yeah, this place, no bueno.
9-5, and I think he went to. I believe he might have gone to the. Did he go to the Bucks after that? I can't remember.
I think
He might
so.
have, like,
Yeah. I
just
think
headed
he said,
right
yeah,
off to the
I'll do
NFL.
instead of this. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sad. Southern Miss is in a sad state, but Will Hall clearly is not the answer. Just again, like there's enough good quarterbacks out there that you can get something better than Tate Rodemaker, and not waste, like you said over here, not waste Frank Gore's career. So
Yeah.
it's a shame.
Is it fair to say that Will Hall, we can say comfortably, is not the Lincoln Riley of the Delta?
Not
Okay.
the Lincoln Riley of the Delta. Can confirm.
Can confirm. Okay. All right. I love this. I love this under. This is going to be a fun team to play against this season.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? I like this hire. Bryant Vincent at Louisiana Monroe. I also feel sorry for him because, man, this mommy's got no food in the cupboard in this one, man. It is lean times at Louisiana Monroe. But man, one season at New Mexico State. Now he brought his kid Dylan Hopkins from UAB, but that is a huge improvement at a place that doesn't really play offense. New Mexico, one season, just giant improvement. I don't know. Maybe this is a piece longer term. The Booty kid from Oklahoma. If he's any relation to John David Booty, he's probably from that area, I'm guessing. Guess what? You lead the nation in something. You have the least amount of returning talent, people that catch the ball. And oh yeah, you're starting over the offensive line. and pretty much on defense too. I say here favored in one game question mark. That's probably Jackson State. Uh, like we said, that game against Southern Miss could really be something. They get them at home. I don't know. I just 2.5 seems high, and the market agrees with me. I like this longer term, but this is a long. This is year zero. They might be waiting on year zero for a year here, but I like this higher. Let's see if he sticks around, or after 3 years, if he just goes to be offensive coordinator at some SEC job or something. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, Brian Vincent's the guy that was at UAB as well, right? Before.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. I do this higher. I'm curious. Yeah, I think they're just this is not going to be the year, and everything you said reflects that. It's hard to even project anything really for them this year. It's year zero. Let's call it a day. Not much to talk
Yeah,
about.
literally, it's they've stumped you. It's not usually there's a few names. You're like they bring in this guy or that guy, and you're just like General Booty was on the Oklahoma roster. We remember him because of his name.
Oh yeah, all name team for sure in the all FBS.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any stronger feelings on the Warhawks, Robert?
No, this was a bad team last year. Again, they're playing other good teams this year. You've got somehow Auburn is on the schedule. I don't know why. Like it's not good. It's this is not a good idea. But again, the thing is though, like it's a good hire. I like the hire too. But again, this is going to be a rebuild. This is going to be like okay, if we're competitive in 5 games, that's a win, right? Not even though we win 3 games. It's like if we were competitive in 5 games. Or oh, there was if this happened and then this happened and this happened, maybe we have an extra couple wins. That's the mark for success, right? And it's not going to be this year. Maybe you can get close to that this year, but this is a team. Watch out for them in the future, though. That's what this is. This is the look ahead. This is a year away from being a year away.
Yeah, I don't see 5 competitive games on the schedule, but they do play at Texas and at Auburn. That's quite an introduction to head coaching. Yikes.
At least they'll make some
Um,
money in those games.
That probably
yeah,
pays for the
yeah,
coach's salary. Be like, yeah, go to
Yeah.
Texas and Auburn get blown out. That's your salary for the year.
yep. All right, South Alabama. I'm not sure where I land on this one. Applewhite has improved the offense. Here's where sorry, Major Applewhite is the new coach replacing Summerall, who no Mac, who went to go be DC at Alabama. I'm really of a split mind here. You can read my notes just to get to really the why I'm just stuck on here. I don't want to blame a guy for just not working out in one spot. I'm not going to hold the Houston. He didn't have a bad record at Houston. It just wasn't great. Might be fair to say that Houston is like almost Auburn level dysfunctional with the UFC guy who also runs their athletic department and the school president saying things like, we don't hire you to win 8 games, or just they don't understand their place in the universe of college football. Don't know if I want to hold that against him. Don't know if I like the internal hire when basically it's the coordinator who was on the weaker side of the team. Now they had more catching up to do. So I don't know what to think here. You, Josh, said, and they're starting over at quarterback too. You said that you thought they might be a good offensive team, so you probably know more about their quarterback than I do. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Gio Lopez. He came in the bowl game and actually played really well, and he showed some really good chemistry with Jamal Pritchett, who's going to be the new slot receiver, who's the one that's always gold in the Major Applewhite offense. Last year it was Colin Lacey, or the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and he transferred to Louisville. We talked about him last time. But this is an offense that has 2 good running backs, 3 wide receivers that are going to be pretty good, and Gio Lopez, who is a dual threat guy but looks to throw it down the field. He scrambles to allow his guys to get open and to throw downfield. And they even have a tight end in Demarcus Thomas. So they just have a lot of pieces. And I think Gio Lopez is actually, I think he's going to be an upgrade, honestly, over
Well,
Carter. Is it Carter Bradley? I think was the guy
Carter Bradley,
before.
yeah, I think is his name.
And so I think Gio Lopez is a guy that's got a lot of potential. Offense is definitely going to have to carry this team, but I think they can do it. But man, when you lose clearly a really good defensive
Yeah,
minded head coach, then that's tough to overcome.
yeah. Yeah. Do you have any kind of more firm opinion than I do on this one, Robert?
No, obviously the loss of the coach is huge, right? And it on some level it's questionable. Oh, you take the Alabama defensive coordinator job, but at the same time though, that was a pretty smart move, right? Now you're an SEC coordinator, right? Now, if Bama does well, then great, you're on your way to a head coaching job, not even just in basically in the Power Two, in the SEC, but in Power Two, maybe even potentially an NFL coordinator job as well, right? Sometimes they hire from the lower level for that as well. No, it was a smart move, I think, because there's a couple of ways the coaches move up, right? We obviously really the coach for South Alabama. They had a bit of a regression last year, and I think. But the other couple way for the coaches is okay. You start here in the Sun Belt, then you get up to an ACC or a Big 12 school, and then you do well there, and then you get up to a Big 12, Big 10 or SEC school, and then you have to rebuild a program there, and then you do well, and then maybe you move. It's a long process to get there, right? And I think jumping up to Alabama defensive coordinator is pretty good. Obviously, we really like this team 2 years ago in
Mhm.
22, and it was really good. It was a really good team. Last year, not as good. Now, there's reasons for that, but again, I think this is another rebuilding year for this team. This is a team that's a year away. I want to see how they are under Major Applewhite. I don't know exactly how they will adjust to the loss. Like again, they were really good one year, less good the next year. Was that a fluke? Was that just like a okay rebuilding coming back up? But again, they lose a lot of that. They lose a lot of the offensive line there, right? So this is a lot of wait and see. I'm not taking a strong opinion on this team. This is a team where I want to see what this looks like on the field, and we'll get some good opportunities. They got North Texas, Ohio. They've got some opportunities to show me what it's like on the field before I have to take a commitment on this.
Yeah, the other thing to Josh's point about the quarterback might be an upgrade. That could be you could see that show with the luck. They had 1.7 games of bad luck last season. Usually there's some kind of correspondence between quarterback play. So if Gio Lopez is a little better, especially if he was good in game one, he had an apex of almost 100. That's really solid for your first career start. Maybe just that moves him up quite a bit too. I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
and in that game, they dropped 59 points. Eastern Michigan's not great, but we're a bowl team. And Gio Lopez, I think he came in the second half. I can't remember. Maybe he just played the first half and they sat him the rest. But kid went 14 of 19, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then comes back with 7 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. And so you can see, and then that kid Jamal Pritchett I was telling you about, 8 catches for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns in about a half. So that's an offense I was cooking with those pieces. We'll see. I don't think Eastern Michigan was much, so face a little bit better competition, I think, in the Sun Belt.
All right. I'm going to do I'm going to do the asshole move with you here. All right. So Josh thinks that South Alabama can win the MAC. Did I get that right?
I,
If they did that with Eastern,
I may actually go for that one for sure.
it is fair. I would favor them. All right. Similarly, Troy, similarly in that they lose their awesome coach, John Summerall left Troy to go to Tulane. Summerall won 2 Sun Belt champions in just 2 seasons there. They lost 3 games last season, and that's I don't know. I don't see any inexcusable losses in that. At Kansas State versus JMU and Duke in the bowl game, not quite as good. Hey, your new head coach is Jared Parker. Yeah, ask Notre Dame. You've got to be kidding me. I don't get it. Is he an alum? Do you know?
I don't think he is. I have no idea. Again, this is another fail. This is Tim Beck. This is failing up. How do you be so bad as an offensive coordinator and then land a head coaching job? No clue. I
Yeah,
don't think he's an alum at
and
all.
this is a program that knows how to win too.
Yeah.
They've been good under several coaches. They have first time coordinators. Okay, at a program like Troy, I'd rather see them get somebody sharp from the FCS rather than just position coaches. But I'm not going to say that precludes anything. Goose Crowder, going to be an all name guy this season, replaces Gunnar Watson. Probably going to see some luck regression. You're losing a high apex quarterback from last season. They were very lucky, game and a half. That probably regresses with loss of a good coach, loss of a good quarterback. Defensive guy from last season loses a bunch on defense. That looks pretty brutal. Looks like it's even between over and under on the 6.5. They're not winning the Sun Belt. This is a tough division, and I think that this could be worse than what we saw Tim Beck do to Coastal Carolina. Any more ideas on, since I threw it to you a little bit, Josh? Anything more on what's happening here at Troy?
I just think they've made a massive mistake in this hire. And again,
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know what the connection with Gerard Parker is. I have no idea how he got here in this moment. And hopefully, this is a better hire than it looks on paper. But man, like they're losing, like you said, they're losing a lot of pieces. You lose Jabre Barber, right? He goes up to A&M. You lose your quarterback. You lose Kamani Vidal to the NFL, who's a guy that NFL people love. And then I don't know really what you replace it with. And on top of that, you got a guy that was just absolutely dysfunctional as an OC last year. So maybe he's got good organizational skills and he interviews well. I don't know.
That's got to be it. I'm just looking up his Wikipedia page here. No
Me
relation.
too. Yeah, I just looked at it. Yep.
Never coached here
Nothing.
before. I don't get it. It's funny because actually I met Robert through a guy that does a Notre Dame podcast, and in the middle of last season, he was just pleading. His whole thing was, look, he's a good tight end coach, okay? I'm not going to dispute that, but. And that's the lead into now the guy's a head coach at what should be a good program. Yeah, I can't say I don't see it because I do see it. I do see it going south pretty quickly. You think so, Robert?
No, I'm not jumping in front of this train. This is looking at, again, glancing at Phil Steele's here. Offensive coordinator at Notre Dame 23. They weren't particularly good then. Offensive coordinator at West Virginia from 2021. They almost fired their coach. Like, this is a trail of bodies here. What are you doing? I have a lot of questions how this guy got hired to be the head coach at Troy. That's huge questions. Goose Crowder, I don't even know. He was a quarterback at West Virginia. That's what Phil Steele says. Okay, he threw a couple passes. That's it. This isn't really this is not like a great accomplishment here. He was just a quarterback at West Virginia. So this definitely gonna be regression here. They won the Sun Belt last year. Probably shouldn't have, but they did. They were like prime regression candidate. They didn't regress. Now you actually bring in a coach that's going to regress, and now that your win total is pegged at 6. That to me seems okay. People are going to bet Troy to go over because they went over the last 2 seasons, and then they're going to go under this year. And this is like we're putting this number here. We dare you to bet over, and I'm not taking that. I'll take the under on this one. This could go really badly. You lose a good quarterback, and luck, and a head coach, and an entire defense. Yeah, good luck with that. And especially in a Sun Belt, when you have to play teams, you don't actually have Texas State on here, but you have pretty good offensive teams on here.
Yeah, I botched their schedule. This is, I think this is Appalachian, or this is.
Oh, yeah, they do have Texas State. All right, good luck. Yeah, have fun.
Yeah. No, I botched that, but not nearly as bad as Mr. Parker's going to botch this season. You know what? I think just to end the last team preview, Jared Parker will have a lot of time to earn his own Julius Caesar, but we got to give the Julius Caesar and just bury the athletic director that made this hire. He needs to be buried and not praised.
I can't even fathom how he came to this hire. Right? What was his like? We off air. We needed to do some deep dive on like how did he get to Gerard Parker?
That's not
what connection did he have?
One of those like whiteboards with the red string all over it. Be like, how did this...
Yeah. All right. And with that, we will go to the 3 questions about the Sun Belt. This is interesting. I will throw this one to you, Josh. Who do you think is the first Sun Belt head coach currently that's going to get a Power 4, pardon my malapropism there, a Power 4 head coaching job?
Yeah, low-hanging fruit here, but I think it's G.J. Kenny. I think that Baylor job is going to come open, and I think he's going to be the guy to fill it, at least the guy that they're going to want to fill it. So I think G.J. Kenny's going to have a huge year, and then he's going to parlay that into a bigger job.
I agree. I see it as a 2-horse race, but Kenny's at the first call. Kenny's 10 lengths ahead of Chesney, who I think is the other logical one, but Chesney's just breaking from the gate right now. So I agree with you. Robert?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's funny he beat Baylor, so in some ways, he guess that was the game for
Mm.
head coaching position at Baylor. But no, like 100%. The thing is, when you have a conference that like has a bunch of new head coaches, three new ones. Obviously, we're not like 100% sold on all of them, but I think it's going to take a couple of years for adjustments at South Alabama, at JMU. Like the JMU hire could be good. I'm actually very bullish on them long term on that, but not this year. This is like a rebuilding year. Next year will be the year we talk about them being good, and then the year after that will be the year we talk about him getting a new head coaching job. That's that. But like for now, it's clearly Texas State, mile away.
And we got to that pretty quickly. I just want to make sure you guys don't want to rethink and maybe go with Butch Jones. Are we comfortable with that? Okay. One,
Times have passed.
yeah. His time never was.
Yeah.
One upset in the Sun Belt does not have to be a conference game. Robert, I'll give you the first stab at that one.
Yeah, it's tough. Let's see, who does Troy have?
I like that.
Give me. This is gonna be dumb. Actually, this is a really dumb idea. But give me Coastal over Troy. Not because I believe in Coastal, but because I don't believe in Troy. And I think they're gonna win a random game that they shouldn't win. And I guess that's an upset. Would that be an upset? I guess. Is that upset enough?
Boy. You know what? Here, but that's a tough one. Let me go back here. I'm just going to go by Troy's plus 1,500. Coastal is. Oops. Did I skip them? Plus 1,600.
Oh.
Can't give it to you.
Yep. No, okay. Need a bigger upset. Okay.
All
right.
Well, I botched their schedule. So, yeah, I botched their schedule, so that's no help.
Okay, give me Old Dominion at Coastal then. There we go.
There you go. Okay. Josh, who do you have?
I'm gonna go out of conference game here, and this is totally a homer pick, but I have some conviction on this. I think JMU is gonna beat North Carolina.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, I think they're gonna gear up for that game. I think they have a bye week maybe right before that game. Gardner Webb before that. And so I think that could be a game where they really game plan for it and they go for it. And if they can stop Amarian Hampton, then I think they got a shot in that game. And they've beaten, I think, last year they beat UVA. I think they beat another FBS Power 5 team, Power 4 team year before. So they've done really well against Power 4 opponents.
I like it. I think this is an upset. I think they're a dog now. I don't know if there's a look ahead line, but I think if you're going to make a line, I'm going to go with the Louisiana at Wake Forest. I like that.
I do too. Yep. That's
all
a
right.
Great one.
Thank you. Oh, let me go back to the actual slide here. Robert, we will start with you. Which two teams will meet in the Sun Belt title game?
Give me. Let me just make sure I got my divisions right. But I'm fairly sure it's going to be Texas State and. What would it be? I don't want to pick App State. I really don't want to. I really don't want to pick.
Like I said, that's the race with a favorite and nobody else.
It's between App State and JMU, and I feel like. All right, give me JMU. I don't believe App State. I honestly don't believe them. I don't believe in them. I think they were a super fraudulent 9-5, and I think that had JMU not been legally ineligible to win the Sun Belt East, they would have made the conference championship game.
All right, I encouraged you to that, and I'm going to take what you should have done. I'll take Texas State versus App State.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I'm
and
doing
to cap
the
it
same
off,
thing.
our guest.
Same thing. Texas State, App State. I can't go with JMU. There's just too many holes. App State. I think that side of the conference is just weak enough that they'll have enough offensive firepower to get there. And I think they get beat by Texas State.
Cannot disagree. Thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate it. You're awesome as always. Robert, I won't see you next time. Robert's going on assignment. He's going to do some special reporting.
Oh boy.
Yes. Stay tuned on that.
Yeah.
little different format for the next preview, but that'll be the American. And until then, thank you both, and thank you all for watching and listening, and we will talk to you soon.
See everybody.
See ya.